Welcome to Space
Erased,
the NASA Fraudcast. I'm your host, Chris.
and I'm Matt.
And welcome. Today, we're going to basically be introducing the program. This is going to be a pilot episode. Be a brief overview of pretty much everything we plan on covering. Everything from the International Space Station alleged fraud to the NASA moon landing cover-up fraud. So pretty much everything NASA's been doing, including never leaving Earth orbit since the Apollo missions. All right, so how are you doing today, Matt?
Pretty good. Very interested to see what topics we get into tonight.
Yeah, so to basically briefly introduce the concept of the program here, I guess both of us are going to be learning. This is a learning experience that we're going to share with the audience. I myself have been researching this topic for a few months now, and I'm starting to believe it. I'm starting to personally subscribe to it. However, my co-host here, not so much. So we're going to be doing, I made a joke earlier that this is going to be kind of like a Hannity and Colmes type situation where you've got, the Fox News fair and balanced, if Fox was actually fair. All right, we won't even get into that. The program here will be a yin-yang type of situation where I'm going to be pitching information. He's going to call me crazy. However, the premise of this program is to do this in a respectful fashion. We don't want to be calling names or anything like that. Ad hominem attacks are not what we're about here. In the comment sections for these videos, we do not want people name calling. If you have differing opinions, fantastic. That's the point of the program here. We want to start asking questions and start peeling away some of truth's protective layers, to quote Neil Armstrong. We can't, however, move forward with any of this stuff if people start calling names and start attacking people's characters and all that. So let's get into it here. I guess to introduce why we're interested in this. I don't know. As a kid, I was obsessed with space, like any other little kid. I learned about all the Apollo missions. I learned about the spacecrafts, the Saturn V rockets. I was like, I could tell you all the little information and numbers and all that stuff. As a kid, I had the opportunity. Actually, he and I both had the opportunity to tour Kennedy Space Center in what is that, Florida or Texas that we went to?
Florida.
It's Florida? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the Houston Space Center, there's one in Texas too, okay. But yeah, that's the place, Kennedy Space Center, where you can see there's a suspended Saturn V rocket that goes right over your head. It's incredible. It's massive. It like literally spans an entire like football field.
Was it? And it was the only one that wasn't launched, right? Or did they actually launch that? I don't think they launched.
They have a few of them, but that's a fully functioning Saturn V.
It's a fully loaded Saturn V. Yeah.
In fact, there was some debate about that. Bush, during the last term of his presidency, was talking about sending man back to the moon, which again made everybody kind of scratch their head a little bit. Like they had to come up with all this technology and equipment that they didn't have. It's like, hey, we already sent guys to the moon. Why don't we just, and we have a rocket already ready to rock. Why don't you dust that thing off? We'll send that up there. But again, for whatever reason, they couldn't or won't or refuse to.
Thing's getting pretty old now.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd want to roll around in anything from the 60s, even though it's been taken pretty good care of.
Yeah, I don't think there was seatbelts in that thing at that time.
No airbags, no ABS.
But to get in, today we're more or less just going to be kind of doing a brief overview of all the subject matter that we'll be covering here. And again, there's going to be a ton more that we're not going to get to today.
Yeah.
Most recently here, I've been looking at the International Space Station. There's a lot of great videos up on YouTube. In fact, there's one channel in particular that I've been hounding. His name is Jeranism, J-E-R, I-N-I-S-I-M or something like that. He's got at least a couple of videos out there that have to do with the International Space Station being a hoax, the moon landing being a hoax, pretty much NASA in general being a fraudulent arm of the United States government. It's a fraudulent agency. Why is this important? Why is it a big deal? Well, over the last, 60, so we're talking 40, 50, I don't know, over the last about 60 years or so, the NASA National Aeronautics and Space Administration has been siphoning money from the American taxpayers to the tune of about $1 trillion at this point. If it is a fraud, if we haven't gone to the moon, a big deal. This is fraud. It's stealing money from the American taxpayers, and that's why I'm interested at this point, and why I'm interested in finding out if it's true or not. I guess just to figure out where you're at, I kind of asked you earlier, but I guess we wanted to save it for the podcast here. Where are you at on the moon landing? Do you think we landed?
The moon it's an interesting topic because when you look at everything in the big picture, rather, you see that the country is in a race, right, against Russia in this case to get to the moon first, or to get a man up in space, and then Russia's beating us in every single different category,
right? Like during the Cold War,
yeah, right. So, and this is our way of showing our technical prowess. So, we did this. I mean, what was it? 10 years, right? It was a 10-year span where we said, by the end of by 1970, basically, we need to have a man on the moon and then return him back safely. So those were like the two biggest pieces there. So, you look at the film industry around that time, Space, or 2001, A Space Odyssey had just come out. There was a lot of attention on space. Star Wars wasn't that far behind, really. I mean, it was
wasn't that like 70s or something that came out?
Yeah, it was mid to late 70s when Star Wars came out, and so both those films using similar technology made better looking space films than the actual moon landing. So to boil it down, basically, the biggest problem I have is if there's a race, the U.S. is going to win it. Even if we have to lie about it, but we're lying to not just the Russians, but we're lying to the American people. We're lying to even the people that worked on the space shuttle program. So there's a lot.
Well, now it would look like the Russians are colluding with the NASA at this point. I mean, because they're a part of the International Space Station. So if it is a hoax, you got China in on it, Russia, India, Japan. A lot of different major, first world countries are now a part of this. So if it is a hoax, now all these guys are involved in it.
Well, I still think one of the best questions, too, and one of the biggest questions is, did we lie about landing on the moon the first time just so we could say we actually beat them, or did we lie entirely and had never gone to the moon, period, But every Apollo mission would have had to have been total BS in order for that to be true. So, Apollo 8 going around the moon, all the different missions, it would have been pretty difficult to, lie to the astronauts, the different group, the different scientists working on it. So, I mean, if it is a conspiracy, it has to be a heavily compartmentalized one, which isn't, outside of the realm of belief, where each group has their specific task of what they're working on, so they have really no idea what the grand picture is. They can just, go home and say, hey, I'm working on the space shuttle, and be American heroes for it. So you have that piece going on, but is it an overall agenda that we're lying about the space program to siphon money out, or to just have why would we have a fake public program about that too? That's another thing that bugs me.
Here's an interesting theory I was just turned on to recently. As far as like the money aspect of it, each NASA Apollo mission, we can find the exact figures. In fact, if you'd like to look that up, that'd be much appreciated there. But the NASA figures per each Apollo mission were like millions of dollars. And if this was a hoax and it was perpetuated, perhaps they used that first couple $1 million to build their sets, build their fake rockets, the fake stuff or whatever. And then they launched about 7 subsequent missions after that, or something or 6 missions after that, which, all the stuff's already bought and paid for. So now they're just repeating the hoax and they're siphoning money off. And that could be going into black budget military projects. I've heard rumors of a military secret space agency, that's like, NASA's basically just like a PR wing for that whole deal to keep us thinking that they're going up there doing little tiny science experiments and stuff and playing with water and smiling and spinning in circles, floating around in space and doing goofy shit.
Yeah, and also to answer your previous question, so I can't get you a figure on each individual mission, but you could do the math if you really wanted to on it. But the total project cost around $30 billion in 1970s currency, or today roughly $110 billion. So that's a lot of money to be spending on a program that may have not done anything. But
Yeah.
once again, doing a hoax that size could have cost a ton of money. I mean, you're talking easily, the size of a large blockbuster film. But even on top of that, they can't just build a prop. They have to build the actual thing. It's got to look like a rocket and has to launch like a rocket. So
Yeah, because you can't debate the fact that a lot of people stood on the ground and watched that rocket take
well,
off.
yeah, and I mean, you can watch the shuttle, or before they cancel the program, you could watch the shuttle take off if you wanted to. So we know that something shuttle shaped attached to a giant, solid fuel and liquid fuel rocket arrangement can go up into the air, but we don't know how far up into the air, or if it makes it into space, or is it low Earth orbit, or is it still within our atmosphere? What do we
Well, shoot, that was my theory for the longest time. It's like, okay, well, you have all these different, they contract private industry companies and things like that into building different parts of the, like the lunar module or something like that, and they're building all this stuff. What do? They just launch it up in space and let it burn on re-entry, and and then the rest is just a movie from there, or how does that work? So again, the idea of the program here is to figure that out. Actually, to kind of switch gears just a little bit, just to let
and to be honest, I want to push forward into what we're really here to talk about, and that's flat Earth. So let's get a transition over there. But yeah, go for it.
But just to kind of let folks know, the name of the program comes from the Apollo mission, or kind of the conspiracy around the Apollo setup. Apparently, and I don't know when we can find this out as well, but there's an archive of all the Apollo video, photos, audio recordings, of all the correspondence done back and forth between Houston and the module itself, and all the photographic, video, audio, all that evidence has either disappeared or been stolen, or it's been erased or stolen. So we decided to cheaply,
or it's locked up super tight.
Well, that's what you'd think. It would be. This is the greatest achievement in American history, and we lost the footage. You got to be kidding me. That's absolutely ludicrous. And when especially every receipt from all time has been saved in the National Archives, there's no way that they're just misplacing the most important footage that we have in our historical collection. So the name of the program is called Space Erased, the NASA Fraudcast. Fraudcast. That was me. Felt pretty good about that one.
Don't break your arm patting your back there, buddy.
Not kidding. No, but again, all of this, if it is a lie, why are they lying, and what does it mean? And that kind of goes to what he was just talking about there.
Okay.
Matt was talking about the flat Earth.
So
Let's get into it.
I'm going to introduce the flat Earth theory, just because I feel like most people, when they hear this, are I'm assuming going to be on my side of this scenario here. So, and once again, this isn't pointing fingers. This is just two different beliefs right now. But, I think it's safe to say that, thousands of years ago, we, as a human species, thought that the Earth was flat because we stood on flat ground, and we just assumed that the entire thing was flat. Then, through different shipping routes and different advancements with boats, ships, things like that, we started circumnavigating the world and started figuring out that, okay, maybe the world's not flat. And as astronomy improved, we realized the Earth isn't flat. It has to be round. And so today we hold this theory that the Earth is specific dimensions, meaning that it's a sphere that measures X amount of feet across, and it's tilted on an axis, to a certain degree, and that it spins around the sun and things like that, right?
Yeah.
However, there is also now a growing group of people who,
Pretty large group, dude.
and it's very popular. There's nothing. I mean, you can disagree with it. However, you cannot disagree with the fact that it is on the public forum. People are talking about it on large forums such as YouTube, things like that. So what is, I guess we'll throw it over here to Chris, but what is the flat Earth theory, and what substantial evidence do you have? Before you start, though,
Okay.
however, I want to put out one specific example from my side of the argument, and that is we can't see the Earth, of course, right, because we're on it, we're looking out, but we can see the moon, which is the closest thing to us. And I think you'd be pretty hard-pressed to say that that's not a three-dimensional, quasi-spherical object. We can't see the back of it, but, according to the Apollo missions, which may or may not be true, it's more of an oblong shape than a spherical shape. But, we can definitely see that that's not a flat surface. So Based on that, and based on what you see in the telescope, and looking at all the different planets, things like that, you would assume that if everything else is round, that the Earth would be round. But I'll throw it over to Chris, who will have an interesting twist on that, I'm sure.
Sorry about that, folks. Looks like our system crashed on us here. We're back. Matt had just asked me to go ahead and I guess essentially represent the flat Earth movement here. So I'm going to go ahead and do my best. I know this will drive some folks nuts because, again, I'm not as educated as some of these guys are, and that's the whole point of this program. We'd like to learn with you, and instead of just doing this research on our own, we figured we'd take you along for the ride. So this is kind of your Flat Earth Light LE edition introduction into Flat Earth. So I'll represent these guys and say the question that a lot of these guys use as their, the beginning point. Why do you think the Earth is round? I'll ask you.
Yeah,
that.
ask me on this. This
Sure.
is great. So why is the Earth round? Because every picture that I've seen of the Earth is round.
Right? Okay. So you're saying, and it's like most, and I'm not just attacking you, we're using each other as each side of the argument.
Go for it,
here.
absolutely.
But, this is the problem a lot of these guys with the moon landing have. They go, why do you think we landed on the moon? Most people's first answer is, well, I saw it on TV. Like nothing on TV has ever been faked. And TV itself is a show. It's like the network movie, he goes, this is just a show. You guys are reality. We're just dancing and up here entertaining you and all this stuff. So the flat earth folks say that their contention is that we've been indoctrinated since birth. You're told, you see globes in the classroom. You're told that we're on a globe. Like Matt said, you look up in the sky, you see a moon. That's a circular object. So, why wouldn't we be on a circular object as well? The sun appears to be a circular object. They're circles. We can't necessarily tell that they're a sphere. The moon kind of looks like a two-dimensional surface, to be honest with you.
You can, when you look at the moon, you can see like the curvature, that and the crescent moon and all that kind of stuff, but you can see the curvature of where the light, goes across and where it fades into darkness,
You know what? I will concede you on that point because you and I have looked in telescopes before
I've
zoomed in on the moon.
I've personally taken pictures of the moon, so like that to me, even if it had a straight sheared off flat back to it, whatever you couldn't see, I can definitively tell you that is a spherical shape on the front or on the face of the moon.
All right, I'm just reviewing my notes here to see. Okay, and then they'll say, okay, well, for the flat Earth, shoot, I'm kind of
No, that's just fine. We're just attacking it one piece at a time there. So what do you got?
So what they're saying is, what's the most recent time we looked really high up in the air? It was that Felix Baumgartner, the highest free fall jump parachute, skydiving, I guess is what
correct.
The term would be.
Yeah, it was a big skydive.
So the guy jumps in what looks kind of like the capsule on top of the Apollo rocket. It's got like a big balloon attached to the top. It rises up just to the edge of space, and the guy's in like a spacesuit. He looked like an Apollo astronaut. So he jumps out in a spacesuit and then does I'm totally spacing on the word here. Skydive. There you go.
A jump.
A jump. Anyways, so the issue that the flat earthers took with that video footage that they took was there's multiple cameras on that rig that he took up there. Inside the capsule, they have a flat lens camera that shoots and looks, normal when you're looking at the guy. And then outside, they used a fisheye lens to capture the whole scene around the capsule when he steps out. And then, you can see the earth and above and stuff. Fisheye kind of gives you the ability to see a little bit more perspective per shot than a flat angle or a flat lens camera can do. The issue they took with the footage was that outside, when you use a fisheye lens, it makes the earth look curved, right? There's a curvature to the lens. It makes flat lines look curved. And you can tell it's a flat or a fisheye lens because part of the capsule, his outfit, he himself is curved, so it's curving everything, not just the horizon of the earth. There's a shot when he leaves the capsule. From behind him, he's got a camera, flat lens camera, that looks out, and it's very flat. The horizon appears to be completely, 90-degree flat. It's 180-degree flat or whatever.
I don't know, but if you think about, I'm sorry to cut you out, but the total size of the Earth, we are sitting on a gigantic rock here. You'd have to be so far. If you stand on the ground, for example, you'd have to be in a pretty maybe the desert. We live on the desert. Maybe that's a great example, but an area with not a lot of foliage, stuff like that, so you can see just the naked earth, But, you'd have to be in a huge, wide open area just to see the curvature there. I mean, and even when you're way high up in the air, like I've skydived before, and when you're jumping out of the plane, the Earth doesn't look curved or anything like that.
Actually, I asked my dad. I said, he's a private pilot. I said, hey, Pa, have you ever flown high enough to see the curvature of the Earth? He goes, nah, you don't get up that high.
Well, okay, to put that into perspective, he's in a single-engine airplane. You can only go so high in that. Normally, just because you don't have a pressurized cabin, you have a little bit. I don't know. It's not. No, I won't even say like a kind of a pressurized cabin. It's just, good. It's basically like sitting in a regular car, up in the air. But once you go up, tens of thousands of feet, that's when you need a pressurized cabin so that the insides don't turn into the outsides. But that plane physically can't go that high. One and two. There's different classes of airspace, and usually the higher classes of airspace are reserved for commercial aircraft or military aircraft. But certainly not private pilots. Private pilots actually fly in the lowest airspace, of airplanes. But once again, helicopters can fly in lower airspace. Different whatever they call it, experimental craft can fly lower airspace.
Well, I'd like to keep it back on track here. To approach the problem of the curvature of the Earth and how high you'd have to be to see it, the actual math here that I've been given is there's a 6-foot drop. As far as curvature is concerned, for every 9 miles. So every 9 miles you go, there's 6 feet of drop every time you hit 9 more miles, right? You ought to be able to see when you're, a private plane's even a mile up, isn't it? Or no, maybe not.
No, you're talking about commercial like 3,000 feet, maybe.
A commercial airliner is a mile up, but those guys aren't. Okay, so a private plane wouldn't go. But a commercial airliner is like a mile up. You should be able to see curvature at a mile up. And you can't. I've flown in a commercial airliner, and
but
you get up above the clouds, and typically you're seeing just like a cloud line.
And that's kind of a logical fallacy once again, because if you could see it maybe from the cockpit's perspective, that would be one thing. But looking out the window, you're just going to see like straight down, and that's not going to show you like the curvature of the Earth.
This is another flat earther. Oh, you know what? Let's take this moment to approach that subject. I'm not going to use We're not going to use the word conspiracy. I'm going to try or the suffix rather. I'm going to try to limit all that as much as possible. If this is correct, if it's true, then all that and conspiracy talk just discredits these people's hard work. So
it's a way of marginalizing people to put them in a category. Oh, you're a truther. Oh, you're a flat earther. Oh, you're a this or you're a homesteader. You're a prepper. You're look at all these. All the ers are just ways to categorize people into smaller boxes.
So to get back on track here, the flat Earth guys with the curvature of the Earth. Shoot, I lost my point there.
You're just saying that every 9 miles you're supposed to see a 6-foot drop, and I rebutted that by basically saying that you're looking at it not from the side but from a top-down perspective.
Okay, that was my
point.
You
wouldn't be able to see that curvature.
One of the points that the flat Earth folks like to point out is that in most cockpits, like of airplanes or in a fighter jet, it's a curved cockpit. So the that could possibly lend to a curved fisheye lens kind of perspective of the Earth, which would even fool fighter pilots and things like that into thinking, okay, that's just a theory. I'm passing that on.
Okay.
And again, that's your job to rebut me on all this stuff, and I have to defend these points, or else they're not worth a hoot. So with the 6 feet drop per 9 miles, the issue that these guys take is that look at the Pacific Ocean. We'll pull up a picture of the Pacific Ocean here so everybody can see it. But if you look at the globe from the outside, and we'll address that later too, the pictures of the Earth itself, if we haven't gone to the moon, are going to be BS. So we're going to talk about that, talk about composite images and things like that. But the Pacific Ocean is a huge body of water, and it's part of this curved Earth, right? So with the 9-foot drop with a 6-foot drop per 9 miles, there's a part of the Pacific Ocean in the middle that's going to be a hump of water over a mile high. That's not spilling out over, on either side or anything. And again, the theory that we've been taught is that centrifugal force from the Earth spinning pulls the water inward and keeps us standing on the ground, and gravity and all that good stuff. But that we've got videos where these guys put their camera, say this is the water level, they put their camera just a little bit higher than the water level, and they shoot across here and they look at a boat or a building or something really, really, really far away. And I've watched a lot of these videos. And the idea that, Christopher Columbus said, I believe that was a part of the origins of the original circular Earth theory, was that you would see the hull of the ship disappear before the mast of the ship. So,
meaning that the hull is going down below the... Oh, where's the hand there?
Yeah, it's going below this point here, so you're going to see, stuff disappear. That's baloney as far as these videos are concerned. I've been looking at a lot of these, and there's a lot of these flat Earth videos that show very long camera shots, real far away, zoomed in, where you can see the bottoms of buildings and things like that, which would kind of lead you to believe that there is no curvature. There was also a famous science experiment.
What about elevation? Is that a higher elevation than the point you're on, and then you're not seeing that curvature as much because
could be possible.
Yeah, I don't know. Go for it.
There's a famous science experiment that these guys use, and I'll have to look that up. It's I don't have the exact information, but essentially, I believe it was done in Europe. There's a really long river that's like perfectly straight. So what these guys, it was two gentlemen. They got a boat and they got a flag, and the guy used a telescope, or like an old, telescope type situation. This is like in the 1800s or 1600s, a long time ago. And they put a flag on the back of the boat, and they took the boat down this really long channel. This other guy stood in the water, and he was about, maybe 6 inches above the surface of the water with this telescope, and he looked straight at that flag, and he said that the flag never changed orientation this whole, like, whatever it was, like 10 mile, or, it was a long time. However far you can see with a telescope, they could see. And they said that the perspective of the flag never dropped or never rose or any of that kind of stuff. It was perfectly flat. So that guy used that as a proof that the Earth is flat. That's another, experiment that these guys always talk about. As far as... All right, go ahead.
Oh, no. It's those are all great things. The problem that I have with, and that's the same as the other people that believe the Earth is round, that don't have a huge background in geology, physics, any of the sciences surrounding that. But we haven't heard of those studies or those statistics or anything like that. But from personal experience, when you're watching sunsets, when you're like, for instance, we went down to Mexico once, and there was an island off the coast of another, land body, and you could see the lights, but they were pretty low to the ground.
Wasn't that like Cozumel from
Playa del
Carmen?
We were in like Playa del Carmen, looking over at Cozumel or whatever it was, or vice versa. But you could see the other island just because of the lights on it. As it got darker and darker. But I don't feel like, I still feel like.
Sorry, folks, we got disconnected there again here. I'm going to let Matt finish his point about the island there and the lights at night.
Correct. So we were far enough away from one island to see the other island sink down noticeably, and you could see lights on it, but you couldn't see them as well as if it was like just straight flat across, So I don't know, from personal experience looking out over oceans, I feel like that lends more credibility to the circular, or the round Earth theory than the flat Earth theory. But we're gonna give our final statement here. Chris, what's your final word on this topic?
Well, I guess the last thing I want to mention here before we go, we are hitting the end of the program here, and we might go a little bit over. We apologize, but a little bit more for the fans. The issue that these guys are taking with the Earth pictures, they go, oh, well, I've seen Earth from space, and this is what we'll pick up at the beginning of our next episode here. Let me make a note. Earth from space.
But space was erased.
Yeah, space was erased. The Earth pictures that you see are even admitted by NASA to be composite images. So satellites go around the Earth, and they take these pictures as they go around the Earth, and they, use a computer program to tie them all together, and that's the image you get. Problem is that there's the size of the North American continent or Africa drastically vary, and then we can get into the theories of the Apollo astronauts using the window in their craft, the Bart Sebril footage that he's uncovered, saying that they just used a window to make the Earth look round, and Africa takes up 90% of the planet, and that's obviously BS. Anyways, I'll let you have the final word here, Matt. I appreciate having you on the show, and I welcome you to the broadcast. I did a pilot episode the other night. I don't know if that'll ever hit the air, but I think the program has dramatically increased in value by having you on here, and I appreciate you being here.
Well, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to come on here with you and at least explore some of these new topics. I've heard of these topics before, but this is the first time I've actually had a chance to get really into it. So appreciate hearing your input. I look forward to giving some more of my perspective there as well in future episodes. Is that what we're calling this? Or
yeah, it's a podcast, so
Cool.
we'll be calling it
so
episodes. I think
in
it's fine.
future podcasts, we'll definitely fill you in on some more of what we believe. But Chris and I are a lot alike in certain topics, and we're also very different in other topics. But till then, this is Space
Erased, the NASA Fraudcast.
That's right.
All right, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be back next week with another half-hour program. See you then.